No case of the Mondays here on Betting Weekly Fast Break. I'm Doug Kezirian alongside professional handicapper Albert Nguyen. And one game in the W this evening, but tons of prop bets and futures posted right now on Bet River. So we will dissect it all as we have about a month to go in the regular season. So really interesting stuff. Albert, good to be with you, my man.
Happy Monday to you too. I'm excited to, dive into the slate today, but also, like you mentioned, a lot of props, a lot of futures. We're getting a line of demarcation, if you will, Doug, between the haves and the have-nots in the W right now.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about the yes no to make the playoffs. We're looking essentially four teams for two spots. We've had some movement in that regard, depending on how you feel about some of the teams that are currently in. Maybe it's five teams for three spots. Who knows? But probably four teams for two spots. So we'll get into all that. And reminder, if you like what you hear, sign up for the newsletter, get exclusive tips and the free Insider magazine. Sign up for free at bettingweeklystudios.com. And we always love when you get involved in the conversation and join the fun. Um, so feel free to jump in on the comments section. Really good stuff. We'll answer your questions, things you like, dislike, you name it. We are here to answer that. So we got one game on the docket tonight at Valhalla. Valkyries hosting the Connecticut Sun at Bet Rivers. The line is 155. So the over-unders come down a little bit. Connecticut in the middle of a road trip just got pounded in LA. They also got smoked in Phoenix. But the Valkyries, we know they're great in the favorite role, but they're not great when they're sorry, we know they're great in the underdog role. They haven't been awesome in the favorite role, but those have been unique situations. I'm on the favorite here. I think Valkyries have been rising to the occasion. They know what must-win situations. They said it when they last played against the Sparks. I think they rise up here, and they're just going to be a team that's going to be a lot more invested in this game, a lot more prepared, and just have a lot more sharpness, I think, to a team that, frankly, is incentivized to lose.
Yeah, it's not only a backing of the Valkyries, and I agree with Doug. I'm going to be on Golden State tonight as well, -8 right now at Bet Rivers. But this is also a fade on the Sun. The Sun, you mentioned it. It's been a long road trip. This is actually the last game in that 4-game road trip. I look at the schedule a lot when it comes to the NBA. I'm doing it more often now with the WNBA, and this could be a potential flat spot for the Sun, who the season's already over. They got shellacked in the previous 3 road games. This is the last one, heading home, and I think not only are their hearts not in it, but I don't think their mental is in it, right? I don't know they're as prepared, as sharp, as mentally ready to deal with a Golden State team who's actually in the middle of a playoff positioning battle.
Yeah, so Golden State's coming off. You mentioned potential flat spot for the Sun. You're right, wrapping up the road trip, all that, but potential flat spot for the Valkyries just because they called their last game, I believe it was on Saturday, against the Sparks a must win. And they won by 13 points. They were small favorites at home just because of the playoff position. If they had lost, then they would have been down a game and the tiebreaker. And so they're vying really with the Sparks for that final spot in a lot of ways. And they called it a must win and delivered. Now, I do think there's going to be a carryover to that professionalism and maturity and just the stakes, the urgency of their play. And I just think Connecticut could be the perfect opponent for this, where the Valkyries have more talent. That's not always the case with them. They beat you with scheme, effort, intelligence, all that stuff. I think it's going to be Valkyries with a bunch of shots open. I really like the -8 here. I think it's a really strong play. And I agree with the total move. I do think the Sun are going to have some trouble scoring. Now, Connecticut's better now than they were earlier in the year, i.e., when they have Mabry in the lineup. So that's key. Tina Charles as well. Those are their two main sort of veterans, if you will. And then rookies Morrow and Rivers are playing well. Hartley's been playing fine. But I think the Valkyries' intensity on defense and their scheming, I like the Connecticut coach. Came over from Europe in terms of that coaching that league. I think this will be a nice, crisp win. Valkyries by like 13.
I see that as well, and I know the WNBA. It's a smaller league, so a lot of these teams play against each other pretty often, right, throughout the season. And for those who don't know, this head-to-head series is tied 1-1. The very last time they played a few weeks ago, July 27th, the Sun were actually 5-point underdogs, and they went into it was at home. It was in Connecticut. They ended up winning by 31 points, right? It was one of the biggest shockers of the season because Golden State at that point they were rolling, and that kind of flipped Golden State's season. So I think there's a little bit of a revenge spot here as well, Doug. I like that estimate of 12 to 13 point win. I think once Golden State gets their fingers and talons on you defensively, and outside of Marina Mabry, right, there's really no one else that scares me on the offensive side for Connecticut. I think Golden State can really shut this defense down. I like the spread a lot in terms of 8 points. I'm looking into alternative markets as well because I think there's a lot of value. Most likely a blowout tonight.
So a couple things. First, I want to acknowledge Petey in the comments section. He says it was Sunday, bloody Sunday for me yesterday. 4 parlays lost by 1 point of some kind, but we are back for more tonight. So sorry about that, Petey. We've all been there by losing by a hook or a point. And I'm glad you mentioned the last time they faced each other because I think it's going to be really beneficial for tonight because it was a teaching moment, if you will, for Natalie Nakase with their team. So it was a Sunday early game, 10 a.m. by their clock, biological clock or internal clock, but it was their first game on the road trip. So what happened was Friday night they played at home, and it was their first game since Thornton was ruled out for the season with a knee injury. So a lot of emotion. They were playing the Dallas Wings, and they were down at half. It was a nice comeback win, feeling themselves a little bit, and then they hit the road and they go to Connecticut as a 5.5 point dog. I was very heavy on the Sun. I made it a pick in the New York Post, things like that. And I just explained how it was really tough for a young team like this to get up for a game like that, be laying 5.5 against a Sun team that was just getting Mabry back. So, and then I was shocked by the result. They blew them out by 30, 31, I think. So I think the Valkyries remember that to your point. So good catch, good way to sniff that out. I think it's a great situational spot to back the Valkyries. So because of the revenge angle, things like that. I think this is a hammer. So I usually do a half unit. I'm going to do a full unit on the Valkyries. I'm also going to do a half unit on the first half. I think they're going to be ready to rock from the tip. They've been great all year as on the first half number. Now, again, they've been usually an underdog, playing better teams, and they're like winning at halftime, things like that, because they're getting their best shot. But the crowd will be ready. And again, they're in playoff mode. I love what their coach said, Natalie Coste, calling it a must win on Saturday, and they took care of business. That was very bring your lunch pail, workmanlike. I love that they said it. They drew a line in the sand and said we have to win this game, and they went and did it by double digits. First half line -3.5. I think they start strong and finish strong. I think this is a one way game, so to speak. So I'll press on this game.
Okay. Yeah, and for those who don't know, they are 9-5 at home, very good home court advantage, 10-4 against the spread at home, right? But Doug mentioned most of those games are when they were an underdog. So this is a different role for them. But I think the fact that they lost to this team already by 31 points, the fact that they've been favored now a few more times, I think that's a big difference as well, Doug.
Yeah.
Like at the beginning of the year, expansion team, very low expectations. They were considered a team that's playing hard, not the team that has a lot of talent. But now we know that this team is a legitimate playoff contender. There is talent on this team, and although Thornton is out for the season, this is still a better team than Connecticut, and I think they can play the role of a favorite moving forward, or they're at least a lot more comfortable. So I'm gonna do one full unit on the full game -8. I like it a lot. Not sure about that the halftime. I agree with Doug though. If they're gonna come out early and often like they have at home throughout the season, then the first half look is pretty strong as well. But for me, just one official play, and that's gonna be the full game -8 spread.
The more I think about it, and that's a big number though. This is like one of the best bets of the year in my regard. Now, famous last words, I get it, but if you think about it, like it's perfect. It's the revenge. It's a team that's focused on the playoffs. They're better than them, and the other team's sort of flat back to back with travel for the Sun, and they're just not that good, right? Like I like them. I like betting on them plus 15 here and there, plus 12 and a half. Got lucky with them at home against the Liberty both Friday and Sunday last weekend. But this is a different ask, and I think they could get boat raced here.
Do you think the advantage here for the Golden State Valkyries is it more the starting five or is it the bench?
So it's a good question because that should definitely be part of the betting angle if you're going to do first half versus first quarter, right? We've talked about it last week. I did with Asia Wilson. Usually plays the whole first quarter, so don't bet against the Aces first quarter. Bet them against them first half because she sits the first 6 minutes. It was actually against this Valkyrie squad. It's hard because they've had so many injuries, right? The Valkyries team that was in peak form when they had everyone healthy, I would say their second unit's really an advantage, but I don't think it really matters with them. I think they just, like, put pieces in, and all the pieces are so well connected and coached, so they're all well connected, and they sort of just all on a string, and it's open jumper, and they just and what they do is they chase defenders off the line, so Mabry's gonna be defended pretty well. Now, the Sun have changed their lineup a little bit. I believe Morrow is now in the starting lineup, and Sanaya Rivers, who I like a lot, is coming off the bench, but she's more of a defensive weapon. This was a big game for the Sun yesterday. So Nelson Adodo's off the bench. Sanaya Rivers is off the bench. Morrow, I mean, she only played 12 minutes, but she started, and she's a good rebounder. She's really strong down low, so she gets offensive rebounds. She scores. Lacan's been a nice piece. So don't be fooled by this Sun roster. Yeah, they're 5-25, but they're basically 500 against the spread. So, and then Mabry missed, I want to say 9 games. They went 1-8, had a fluky home win when they upset the Storm. So, I think the Valkyries pound them, but it's going to be because they played well. I don't think the Sun are pathetic. Like I think the Wings, or sorry, the Sky are much worse.
So let
At
me
least this version, especially without Angel Reese.
So let's double click a little bit more on the Sun, and not just this game in particular, Doug, but just the outlook of the season and then next season moving forward. Because we do know that this team, this franchise, is moving from Connecticut to Boston. So does that have an effect on players? That's question number one. And then if you look at and this is the same for every single team, but basically 75% of the team are free agents this year, right? So if they're gonna stay with the team knowing that they're gonna move to Boston, or are they gonna leave because they don't want that, unstableness? It's a lot of out off the court ulterior issues that I think these players have to deal with. Do you think that plays a toll, or does that have an impact on how they play?
Well, it should have an impact. What degree is the question? I think it's a great question. I would say this: it's not a positive, right? It can't be a good thing to have disarray or at least unknown and uncertainty. No one likes uncertainty in life. We all like clarity and stability. So at best, it's no impact, right? It's not going to be a positive. So to say it has an impact or a negative impact, I would say, yeah, it should. Now, to what degree is the question. Um, but to your point, there's over 100 free agents in the league this coming off season with the TV media deal kicking in. Really, only the rookies from the last couple of years are under contract. So that means Paige Beckers, Caitlin Clark, some of the others. But outside of that, there's going to be a lot. I mean, Asia Wilson, if he's a Collier, all the stars are, or at least the superstars are going to be free agents. But there's a lot of moving parts. I think the Sun are just kind of like trying things out, and they wanted the game in Vegas. Like they played hard, they covered, they lost by 8, played to the final whistle. They were about 11 and a half point dogs. I don't think they're kind of up for this game. I think the Valkyries could pound them. I think it's going to be a good shooting performance. I think the Sun team total is worth a play as well on the under, but I'll stick with the first half in the game. 7.5. Hopefully, the market comes back to that. That would be a better price to play. Just it was weird because overnight this was 8.5, 9. So I like this team, and I've always said, I mean, you got to respect the market, but I trust my instincts over any sharp groups. Because the sharpest groups are not in the market for WNBA because they can't have the limits, so they stick to football and stuff. So I really respect um, my evaluation, especially talking it out with you and others on this show.
Yeah, and the Aces last night needed every bit of Asia Wilson's 30 and 20 game just to
Right.
just to get through the Sun. That's the first ever, by the way, 30-20 game in WNBA history. So props to Asia there. I agree with you. It's not only a second night of a back to back, but it is the last game in a very very long road trip. That was a failure. They went 0-3 in the first three games, and they covered yesterday. So even from a situational spot, from a ATS perspective, this is a good rebound for the Valkyries.
Yeah, and Marvin mentioning it in the chat. Isn't this a revenge spot for the Valks too when they got blown out in Connecticut? It sure is. So yeah, we're looking at everything from all angles. Important to attack. Hey, just a reminder, it's not just great WNBA talk here on the Bet Rivers channel. We also have some soccer, Betting Weekly English Premier League, the first episode of the season with Nigel, Jack, and Dan previewing the upcoming EPL season, discussing their favorite futures plays ahead of Friday's opener. That's been posted, so go check that out here on Betting Weekly Fast Break. We are Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. Also, Betting Weekly Hardball, Monday through Friday, dissecting the baseball action. Everything is being monitored here. That's Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. So I mentioned just one game on the docket here in the W, but we got some interesting futures. The Valkyries part of the equation as well. On the yes no to make the playoffs, they are minus 132 to the yes. Now, factoring into that is coming off the win that was big over the Sparks, but also the fact that they're 8-point home favorites tonight. So that money line is certainly a component to this. Then they go to for a 2-game set in Washington and then in Chicago. That game in Washington's massive because the Mystics are outside looking in, but at least flirting with the playoff position. Chicago is who knows if Angel's going to be back. She's nursing a back injury, but there's some tough games on the slate. But I mean, they don't even need to be 500. I think I heard on a recent podcast, I was listening to someone I respect, they said 21 wins should probably get the last team in the playoff. That should be the 8 seed. So, I mean, here we are. Valkyries are in right now at 15 and 15. They're big favorites at home on the money line tonight. Would you play this? Is this worth playing on either the yes or the no?
If you are confident in tonight, and both of us are because we're on a spread -8, so I do, I think it's a really good spot because I agree with those analysts. I don't think that you have to play 500 ball to be the 8th seed right now. So they're currently 8. They're 15 and 15, half a game above the Sparks. The Sparks were on fire, right? I think they're 8-2 in their last 10. They were on a crazy winning streak before that. I don't think it's sustainable personally. I know that they're playing so much better. They're shooting a lot of threes. Cameron Brink is back, giving them another, wrinkle on defense. But I don't think the Sparks can play 80% basketball, right, in the next 2 to 3 weeks. So I like the Sparks to kind of regress back down to where they're supposed to be, which is a 500 ball club. And the Golden State Valkyries, if they just continue to play how they're playing now and take care of home court, which we know they have one of the best home court advantages in the league, I like it. So I mean, -120, what is it? -126. I think
132. 132.
I think that's fair, and I personally I would play it. Let's make it official because I believe
Okay.
in this team. I believe in this team more than I do the Sparks and the Mystics, and that's the only 2 teams I have to worry about right now.
Yes, but you might get a gift because there's another component to this. And just want to remind everyone last week, Wes Reynolds was on the show. He played Sparks to make the playoffs at plus 117. Now, both can cash because the Seattle Storm have lost 5 straight games despite adding Brittany Sykes via the trade. And they only gave up Alicia Clark and a pick. So right now, the no for the Seattle Storm is plus 575.
Wow.
So there's a chance the Storm keeps stumbling and don't get it figured out. I don't love their coach, Noel Quinn. And there's a chance because they're right now I mean, they're tied with the Valkyries at 500 ball. Now they've played 2 more games, so they're 16 and 16. But the Valkyries could get into that 7 seed with a win tonight. And then the Storm are on the cut line as the 8 seed. Now, on paper, they're way better, power rating wise, all that stuff, but they've lost 5 straight, albeit to quality teams. They were favored on the road and things like that, but they've been losable games, so to speak. They now have Atlanta at home, back-to-back games, and then Phoenix at home. I wouldn't be shocked if they lost all 3 of these games. Now, you would think they could get a split at worst with the Dream, just because it's tough to beat a team twice in their barn back-to-back games, but this Seattle team has fundamental issues. I if they didn't get Sykes, I think I would be betting the no. Sorry, the yes, that they would, so these money lines are backwards. Sorry about this. So to make the playoffs is actually minus 1250. So they're heavy favorites to make the playoffs and a long shot to miss. But they lack an edge. They lack an urgency. And they're trying to also play Malanga, the 19-year-old big who they got from France, I believe, who, is the number 2 overall pick. Fantastic. She's coming along great. She's having double doubles. But that's coming at the expense of just their veterans just dominating. And or maybe the veterans just lost a step because Ezzy Magmador has not been good at all. Skylar Diggins is having a great year, but things are off a little bit right now with this team, and they just can't put together 4 full quarters. So Storm to miss the playoffs, that is plus 575. I would look at that. I definitely think with these 3 games coming up, there's no way I would lay the lumber that they're going to make the playoffs.
Yeah, it's interesting because if you ask Doug and I the same question just a couple weeks ago, especially after the Sykes move, we were both very bullish on this team, right? Seattle had been playing really well. They were locking teams up. I think the win in New York really put them on the map a few weeks ago,
Yeah.
and they haven't played the same ever since. In fact, they haven't won since the trade. And so until I see them actually put 4 quarters together and win a game, I'm not even looking for them to cover, but for them to win a game while integrating Sykes. Until that happens, I don't believe that they will, right? So it's one of those things where you have to prove it before I can really believe it. You want to, as a bettor, you want to be in front of markets. You want to be, you want to be ahead of those indicators. But sometimes, like in this case with Seattle, like I have to see it first. And so I don't know if I'm bold enough to do miss the playoffs just because I know how much talent they have, and at their peak they're competing with the top teams in the league. But I could see them continue to struggle, right? Trying to integrate Sykes, and it's not even on Sykes. I think Doug mentioned it. I think the rest of the starters have taken a step back, and we'll see if they can kind of find their groove again moving forward.
Yeah, there's a lot of too cool for school with them. I think Nneka's obviously very talented, but she's almost like pacing herself like an old man running on the track. Like once you get go, she's just kind of saving stuff for the postseason. If they get there, Magmador's been the biggest disappointment. I've been really disappointed with her this season. And there's just a little too cool school. It's like Skylar Diggins plays almost like Haley Van Lith, like very fundamental, a lot of jab steps. And it's like that nonsense isn't going to work anymore. You're not gonna be able to get good looks, and then Erica Wheeler misses a layup every time I look up, uh, and I'm getting burned on, like, a first quarter line minus a half, and, Chris Massaro and I, the last show, laughed about this is I forget what game we were talking about in baseball, but he was saying that, he got burned and he's not going back to the well. He touched the stove and doesn't want to touch back. And I said that about the Storm. I said, the Seattle Storm have lost 5 straight. I'm almost just glad that I only lost once on them. I didn't keep going. Okay, well, now it's a must win because prior to this 5-game skid, Albert, they hadn't lost back to back games all year. So when they lose, they bounce back. So that cruise control that they've been on that's frustrating, they kind of snap out of it the next game, but that hasn't been the case. 5 straight losses, and a lot of these games have come down to the wire. One of them was a triple overtime loss at home to LA. Now that was just a really well played game by the Sparks, but still, Storm had the ball, botched an inbound. Like they're just all out of it. And I hate some of the lineups Quinn uses. So obviously, I wouldn't lay the 1250, but it's plus 575 or pass. But I guess it's part of the equation for the Valkyries and the Sparks futures that we're not guaranteed the Storm are going to handle their business. Now, I would say the Aces will. Now, they're 2 games up on the Storm, and they have Asia Wilson, and they're playing much better. But this, as we look at the futures market, there's definitely tiers here. The Lynx and Liberty co-favorites at Bet Rivers plus 150. Both are missing a former MVP or maybe future MVP and then former MVP out with injury currently. Mercury, Dream, and Fever, the next tier. Storm, no chance I'd take 1600, but that's the kind of talent that they have we were discussing.
Yeah, I mean, although they're on a 5-game losing streak, Doug, they lost by 2, 4, 4, 4, and 3. Like these are coin flip endings, and maybe it's a blessing in disguise that they're losing all of these close games now. So then maybe it's going to flip towards the end of the year. But Two of them, you mentioned it against the Sparks, double overtime a couple weeks ago, and then last night they started off the fourth quarter really hot, got the lead, and then allowed LA to come back, and I think LA hit a and one layup to win at the end, and so they're just not closing games, and that's something that is surprising, right? With all their veterans, with Skylar, and now with Sykes, like you would expect this veteran team that's been around a bunch to know how to finish games, but it's turnovers and it's missed free throws that are really biting them at the end of games right now.
It's a great point, and I should also mention, I don't wanna let her fly under the radar. Gabby Williams has been terrible as well. So she's a great defender, super athletic, but just hasn't been shooting the 3 lately well. She did at the beginning of the season, but a lot of problems. But to your point, they could easily have won 5 straight. I just don't think they could have because they don't have the execution. There are also some win totals, adjusted win totals posted right now at Bet Rivers I think are super compelling. Let's start with the Minnesota Lynx, who have not broken stride in the absence of Nafisa Collier. They've won back-to-back games, one of which was in Seattle, where they punked them in the second half, and they did that to the Liberty yesterday. So their over-under right now is 34.5. Minnesota currently best record in basketball, 27-5. So that means they have 32 games played. They have 12 remaining. So in order to cash 35 with their current record of 27 and their remaining 12 games, they have to go 8-4 or better. Now, they could lock up the best record at the end of the season, right? And therefore, they could maybe sit other players. And I'm hearing Fee could be out for a while, not just the minimum 2 weeks. So be careful just assuming she's only going to miss the 4 games and they've won the first two. But this Lynx team's on a mission this year, man. And I've been not writing them off, but I've been skeptical whether they're like dominant. They're rightful co-favorites, but I think their defense and the supporting cast without Fee plays loose and doesn't have to run everything through her. And obviously, these other teams just don't have the tenacity and the edge. And Courtney Williams is playing great. I'd look over, even if they punt the last game or two of the year, they're that good.
Yeah, the system is so good that it's enough to win games even with the talented players. This is very reminiscent of OKC last year, in my opinion, in the WNBA. I mean, they have an 11 and a half point differential, which is going to be historic, just like OKC, I think, had a 12 and a half point. They're going to end up winning close to, 34, 35 plus games, another historic run there. So I don't know. I think this Lynx team is underrated, even at 27-5, and this is great that they're winning because it allows them to, take it easy when it comes to Nafisa and other players if they do get hurt or if they're dealing with things like they're able right now to kind of not rest or load manage, but not really, go all out because they're already the number one seed. It's going to allow them to really peak at the right time health wise heading into the postseason. So this 34 and a half wins total, Doug, it does seem it seems a little fishy, right? Because they're rolling with or without their MVP. They're on a 5-game winning streak. You know they're not gonna lose 3 in a row out of nowhere, right? They're just too good for that to happen. So the fact that it's juiced to the under is very interesting to me. So for me as a layoff, my ears perked up in terms of like, yeah, this is I'm not gonna touch this with a 10-foot pole type of thing.
We see the odds currently in the MVP market -$5. Nafisa, so much already equity in this market, just what she's accomplished so far. This team rolling, and AT's been ripping off triple doubles, but Collier, I think Wes, and Wes will be on the show later in the week, but he has really good instincts on this, talking about what she's done for the league as a whole, like an ambassador, the unrivaled league, getting players paid. That's going to have a lot of carry a lot of weight. So I wouldn't lay the $5, but I don't think it's worth betting Alyssa Thomas at that price. But back to the Lynx, their next 3 games I think are worth mentioning, and I think that's why it's juiced to the under. They have back-to-back games against the Liberty. They host New York on Saturday and then go back to Barclays on Tuesday, a week from tomorrow. So those are their next 2 games. I think Brianna Stewart will be back at the end of the month, but I don't think for these games. And then after that, they go to Atlanta and Indiana. So those are 4 losable games. They just punked the Liberty in the second half. I don't think New York has the hunger and the tenacity defensively. And I think Sabrina can get shut down with Dejanay Carrington guarding her. Carrington's been fantastic and a great acquisition for Minnesota. Really impressive job by Cheryl Reeve. But I wouldn't bet under, but I wouldn't bet over here. I think this number's right in that regard. Couple other adjusted win totals. The Liberty, 29 and a half. So that's juiced to the under as well. New York right now, 20 and 11. So that's a total of 31 games. That means they have 13 remaining. So in order to go to 30 wins, which would cash the over, they have to go 10 and 3. I'm not so sure they do it. This is a team that does not play a whole lot of defense. Sabrina's a ball watcher on D. John Quell's been sort of going through the motions. I mean, the Liberty have this road trip. They're going to go to LA tomorrow, then Vegas on a back to back. So they play Wednesday on ESPN, then Saturday in Minnesota. I mean, they could lose 3 games, all 3 of those, right?
Yeah,
Then
you
they host Minnesota, another game they could lose. They go to Atlanta later. They go to Phoenix, Golden State, Seattle, and then maybe at the end of the year, yeah, they play at Chicago, but the Lynx don't have their draft pick, so the Lynx are going to try, if anything, and maybe the Liberty will be locked into their playoff position at 2 or 3 or whatever. So I think this is kind of a banger on the over. Now I know Stewie's going to return, or sorry, on the under, but I feel like they're not winning 10 games. They're not going 10 and 3.
I don't see them going 10-3 with that defense. They give up way too many, points for the other team. And you mentioned, you know, the Lynx having to play the Liberty, 2 times coming up. The Liberty have to play against the Lynx, and they just lost to the Lynx not only yesterday but a couple weeks ago, with or without the Fiza. So I don't see it. I see them maybe splitting that Sparks Aces back to back. Those are 2 teams that play differently that are gonna attack the Liberty very, very differently, and the Liberty is gonna allow the Sparks to get any shot they want. That's gonna be very, very high scoring. I'm intrigued to see what the total is for that game, and then when they play the Aces there, they're gonna have to, guard arguably the best player in the league who's just coming off a 30-20 game, putting the team on her back. So, I don't know. It seems easy with the under there. If you're gonna do it, Doug, I'll ride with you as well, but,
I am going to do it.
okay, I'll ride with you as well because it seems very easy. 10-3, we have to look into this entire season and see how many times they've gone 10-3, right? First of all,
Right?
because, they've been an inconsistent team. We know that this is a championship or bust team. They have a ton of talent. John Quell coming back was huge for them, but they've been inconsistent this year. And so I don't know. I would be surprised that if they had more than one run where they went 10-3, and you're asking for them to do it again.
Yeah, there's a championship hangover going on, right? And then they have Mieselman, which has been a nice addition for sure. And they'll figure it out. But I think this is a team that's waiting for the playoffs. And like they're a little too cool for school. That's entire Sabrina's offensive game. She can get shut down by good defenders because she's not fast and athletic. Comparatively, obviously, by relative standards. So yeah, I'm on the under here. And by the way, the over under is posted for tomorrow. 178 and a half is your
Interesting.
over under for tomorrow in LA. And just for context here, they're only 3.5 point road favorites. So we need four. Let's say, okay, we're betting the under, right? We're on under 29 and a half. So we need 4 losses. Saying there's a split there is not crazy because they're going to be maybe pick them against the Aces if they win against the Sparks. It'll be kind of a letdown spot, right? So it'll be like Aces -1 or whatever. So, and then they play let's say they split the next 4 games. That's 2 losses. We need 2 more losses. They go to Atlanta. Like I said, the end of the season, they might be locked in. Maybe Sabrina needs a rest when Stewie gets back. Um, Granted, we're going to want the losses now because Stewie comes back. They'll be at full strength, and that's concerning because they'll bring me someone off the bench, Phoebus, Johannes. There's a lot to like, but I'll take under 29 and a half for sure on this Liberty squad. We're wrapping up the show soon. Let's go to the Fever. 25 and a half wins is their adjustment. They've lost back-to-back games after that 5-game stretch. So they're 18 and 14 right now. That's 32 total. They have 12 more games left in the regular season. So in order to go over 25 and a half, they have to go 8 and 4 or better the rest of the way. Now, we don't know when Caitlin Clark's going to come back, but it sounds like they're comfortable as long as they get in, or content's probably a better word. As long as they can get into the playoffs, I think Kelsey Mitchell's been fantastic. I think she's better than Kelsey Plum, by the way. I don't know why people rate Plum so high. I just think they just want to get into the playoffs, and I don't think they want to rush it because if they rush Caitlin Clark back and she has a setback, then she's done. So they want to just kind of build as much health in her. So I'm a little gun shy on the over just because they're so limited at the point guard position. They lost their two other point guards. They're adding Odyssey Sims, who's good. I think she's good. I think she'll do exactly what Ari McDonald was doing essentially. But people are getting everyone's best shot too, and that concerns me a little bit if I'm betting the over. And they have essentially losable games the rest of the way. They play two against the Lynx, they play the Mystics, they play the Storm, they play the Sparks, Valkyrie, Mercury, Mystics again, Lynx to end the season. Now they get a couple, sprinkled in there with the sun and the sky, but 8-4 is a lot to ask for a team that may not be invested that much.
So I'll say this: they have played very, very well without Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark is a superstar in this league. She's arguably, heading into the season was an MVP front runner, and it was justified. The way that she can control a game is amazing. And we all thought without Clark that they were going to struggle, and they struggled for a little bit, and they figured out how to play with Caitlin Clark, and they've been unbelievable. I think the moves that they made over the last offseason has really helped, not only with talent but depth, and that's why they were kind of a dark horse to win it all this season. But with all that said, Doug, and here's my but, I think there's a chance that they might go on a huge losing streak. I know
I
that
agree.
they're playing really well, and I know that they're playing above expectations right now. But let's say they do a Seattle and lose 5 straight, and they're 18-19. They're gonna be, the missed playoffs. I think there might be some value there because they're not gonna rush Caitlin Clark back. I think now that, we're a few weeks into this injury, she's not gonna get better until the offseason. Let's be honest. Like, even if she gets back and she plays, like, she's gonna baby it. She's not gonna go 100%, and she's gonna make sure she doesn't re-injure herself. And those are the times when athletes put them in more risk to re-injure themselves, right? Like, if you sprain your left ankle, most likely you're gonna sprain your right ankle if you try to play it safe. So I think that Caitlin Clark should be resting for the rest of the year. Think long term. And if she's resting for the remainder of the year, I think there's actually some value there, not only in the under 25.5 win total, but whatever that long shot is to miss the playoffs. And I know they're above like so many teams right now, but it just takes one 5 game losing streak and one 6 game losing streak, and they're right there, right below Seattle. So that's my answer of saying I like the under here. By the way, looked at the New York Liberty results.
Yeah.
They started the season 9-0, Doug, and even the 9-0 start, they lost 2 of the next 3, so they went, 10-3. So, even after that amazing start, sorry, they lost 3 of the next 4 games. So even after the amazing 9-0 start for the Liberty, they were 10-3 before it's all done.
Yeah, I would bet the under too. I think there's just too many moving parts here. Highly recommend the under. I'm just not going to play it because I just don't know when the Caitlin Clark. There's too much unknown for my appetite, but that's how I see it. That's how I see it. We have some breaking news here that is favorable for us, and Bet Rivers really smart to be ahead of the market here because they were at 8 and the market was at 7.5. And Tina Charles has just been ruled out for the Connecticut Sun. So I hope everyone locked in when we locked in at -8 because this market's going to get steamed. That's a big miss. I think this is a beat down tonight. The more I think about it, it's a hammer job. So I'm all in on the Valkyries tonight. I think they blow them out. I sometimes playing a team without its best player or one kind of it almost induces a flat spot from them. But I think the Valkyries going to be all business tonight.
And I think we're gonna see this from the Sun moving forward, right? Like I mentioned earlier, all their veterans are free agents. I think they have 4 rookies on their team contracted till 2028, and that's it. Everybody else a free agent. And I think we're gonna see these type of quote unquote business decisions to, sit here, rest a quarter here. And I think moving forward, you have to keep that in mind because the Sun, from a record perspective, they're completely out of it. So they're looking on to how to build a team for the future.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point. You got to stay Johnny on the spot, Twitter capping, if you will, scouring, things like that, because the steam is coming. And so I think Bet Rivers, when we were discussing 8, was really sharp because it's 8.5 now, and that's going to be flooded. I just think I really think they're going to start strong and kill them. So hopefully those, it's the beauty of tailing and watching live because we're ahead of the market in a lot of ways, and hopefully people jumped in on that in that regard. So that's going to do it for this edition. It was fun to discuss futures as well. A lot of domino effect to everything. So just a reminder, we are Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. We hope you all tune in. Really good handicapping angles. Uh, Albert will be back on the show tomorrow with Sarah. We'll have 2 games, and then you also look at some other futures. Hopefully, the Valkyries will be off a win. We could massage our positions accordingly. But I think we're seeing the ball well here. I think this is a good spot for us, Albert. We'll bounce back. We'll build off this. But good hang for Albert Nguyen and everyone else behind the scenes who does such an awesome job producing, directing, and graphics. I'm Doug Kezirian. Best of luck out there, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.